sick and tired of establishment politics, and they want real change.
Welcome to New Libs on the Block. I'm your host, Representative Brion Curran.
I'm Representative Kristi Pursell.
And we are here today, just the two of us, winging it without Andy Smith. He has other obligations, as we all do at this busy time of year. So today, folks get to listen to a conversation between Kristi and I, and I'm very, very excited for this conversation, Kristi. But first, we know there were some not so great headlines nationally made by a Minnesota senator. Do we want to talk about that?
We do not want to talk about that.
Gross. I agree.
No, thank you.
Maybe let's not give that person any more airtime. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think
what's something better and nicer that we could talk about instead of men behaving badly?
Yeah. Instead of men behaving badly, let's talk about kick-ass women who are getting the job done in the Minnesota House. I think that's a better thing to talk about.
I love that. That's like, this podcast might last 8 hours, everybody, because there's so many kick-ass women that we work with in the House.
There are way too many. We had to try to narrow ourselves down to 3 each just for the sake of time. But there are so many amazing women that we could celebrate this Women's History Month 2020. But we have narrowed it down just for the sake of time. And of course, offering love to those who aren't mentioned throughout the podcast today, but we'll try to highlight them throughout other episodes, maybe.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's Women's History Month, and we can only remember the history that women make just 1 month a year.
That's right.
Since March is coming to a close, we got a quick talk about
real quick
some of our favorite ladies.
That's right. So, Kristi, do you want to kick us off with your first highlighted legislator?
Sure. So this will come as no surprise to longtime listeners of the pod. I have waxed poetic about this particular DFL female leader. Her leadership has really been on display, especially this session. So I am talking about Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman.
Yay!
So she's our caucus leader now. Her stint as Speaker of the House was tied for the longest of any Speaker of the House ever in Minnesota, and was the longest serving identifying female of the Speaker of the House at 6 years. So it's so cool that Brion and I get to work with her.
Yes,
and Brion and I are both what do you call them? Assistant floor leaders or something.
Oh yeah, assistant caucus leader, assistant floor leader.
Yes. So we get to have a little more FaceTime. I like to call her Speaks.
Yes.
So with Speaker and former Speaker Melissa Hortman, and she's just a delight. She just keeps it real. I always trust people a lot more when they swear.
Yeah.
She has a potty mouth like you and I too, Bria.
That's right.
Which makes me just feel like I can trust her more.
Uh-huh.
Her district that she represents is in you're a suburb person. This is like the northwest suburbs kind of area. So it's like Brooklyn Park, Champlin, a little bit of Coon Rapids, and Anoka and Hennepin counties. So that's the part of the state that she represents. And she actually first ran for office and lost, or she ran for the House and she lost twice.
2.
And I think if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about this woman's tenacity and smarts and really clued into her own values and the values of her community, I am so glad that she kept running. I'm so glad that she was not deterred at the beginning of her career as a legislator. She is so smart. She got her lawyering degree. What is called the JD. She got her. She became an attorney at the University of Minnesota. She also went to Boston University and Harvard. She's very smart. She has a kick-ass family. And what I didn't know, because this was before Brion and my time in the House, is that she's the former Energy Committee chair. And I think we've had some really amazing powerhouses, like the co-chair currently,
That's
Representative
right.
Patty Acom, who
Mhm.
will just a quick little shout out because we're not going to record for 9 hours with all these amazing women. So, Melissa Ortman was making waves long before she even had the speakership, but her leadership and her selflessness, especially on display with beginning of session and not providing quorum and
Right.
then giving up the speakership or a co-speakership in order for us to be able to come back to the Capitol, I think really shows you her selflessness and her, again, just like laser focus on her values and what she thinks is best for the state. So I know I can speak for Brion as well. We both just are so enamored to get to work with this great leader. She's assistant majority leader and a minority whip. She was elected in 2004. So
Okay.
she has been in for 20 years and sat in all the seats, done all the different things.
All
And
of the things. She is the queen of strategy in the best way.
absolutely.
And just so, a little bit of like inside the caucus, she truly is that leader. You had mentioned like a little bit of, sacrifice, especially at the beginning of this particular session in 2023, where um, we all but begged her not to, give up on taking half of the speakership for the true tie. And that was her card that she decided to play. That wasn't anything that anyone on our team offered up. In fact, we pushed against her a little bit and said, no speaks, we need you in there. We don't want to lose you. And so that truly, just another example of incredible leadership on her part. And she really does that in her conversations that she has as a leader, and takes things that the rest of the team maybe doesn't have to take sometimes, because she is that leader. So yeah, can't say enough about the wonderful speaks Melissa Hortman.
Yes. And she always is trying to think. She's very pragmatic. So she's always trying to think about, well, what do we want in the end?
Mm-hmm.
And she's not there to just score cheap political points.
Right.
It's truly she's a masterful diplomat.
Mm-hmm.
It's been pretty cool to get to see behind the curtain a little bit more with
Yeah.
our assistant leader meetings and just sort of hear, what's her 20 years of experience, to sort of hear how her mind works, and she can remember, oh, there's a time where we tried that and it turned out like this, or they tried that and it turned out
Yeah.
like this. And so she just adds so much to the learnings that younger legislators like Brion and I have. And yeah, she's just been a wonderful leader for the DFL in Minnesota, truly.
Yep.
So, yay, Melissa
Amazing.
Hortman.
Amazing.
I hope she listens to all this sucking up that we're doing.
Well, the funny thing is there's zero reason to suck up, right? I mean, the one thing that she says to us all the time is you all have your own election certificates, and you use them responsibly, and you do with them what your district would like you to do. And so truly, we are flattering her with compliments for the podcast, but it's because we mean it. And she's a great, genuine leader. I love it.
So glad she's at the helm of
Yes.
our caucus. So,
Yes, me too.
and so we're going to kind of go every other. So that was mostly me with a bit of research I did on Speaks. So, Brion, who is it that you want to hype on
Yeah.
pod right now?
Yeah, so you started with a legislator who's been around for 20 years. So I'm going to do mine in a reverse order and go newest to longest serving.
Ooh, I love that.
So this legislator is a fellow new Lib, has been on the show before, is part of the trifecta class, who is in our second term now, first elected in 2022. also known as the Tree Lady, and the legislator, I think, with the best skateboarding skills, who's also an incredible writer and an artist, the one, the only Representative Lee Finke.
Lee Finke!
Lee Finke!
Oh, sorry, I want to steal your thunder. She also has gotten national.
Yes.
Then.
That's right. Lee Finke has, rightfully so, garnered national attention for her leadership as a woman in our legislature and, making waves, not intentionally, but just being who she is and being proud of it and authentic and fighting for freedom and liberation and for human rights for everybody. And I think it's easy to say nobody can ignore the brilliant work of Lee Finke, even in just our first term that we had. Kristi and I got to serve alongside Lee as she was, we talked about Speaks being at the helm of our team, and Lee Finke was at the helm of one of our most difficult bills that we passed with the trans refuge bill in the state of Minnesota. And now, looking at where we are nationally, is proving to be a point in history that we will look back on proudly as Minnesotans, because we are now a beacon for trans people across the country. We're a beacon in other ways too, because of a lot of awesome things we did that Kristi and I got to be part of in our first term. But Lee's work in particular is making Minnesota even safer and more welcoming for so many more people who are going through some real turmoil, especially with what we're seeing at the federal level and how that's affecting other states that unfortunately make some really terrible decisions, othering people. So I absolutely had to highlight Lee Finke, the Tree Lady from, a little suburb of St. Paul. And, she was the first out trans legislator in Minnesota and currently the only out trans woman in our legislature. And because of that, she's had to make a lot of sacrifices for this work. And Kristi and I are, no strangers to having to make sacrifices just in the general day-to-day as legislators. We don't get to see our families a lot, especially during session. The hours are long, travel stinks, all of the regular stuff that the rest of us have to deal with. Lee Finke in particular gets hit with a lot of shit. And it's simply for existing, like I said, for being such a badass advocate for rights. And people hate it. Some people really hate that. Well, I think sometimes when you get that sort of negative attention, it's a sign that you're doing the right thing. And doesn't mean that what Lee has gone through, though, hasn't been incredibly hurtful, harmful, and scary sometimes. And so, I think it's amazing that she, along with the rest of the trifecta class, decided to run for re-election and get reelected after enduring all of that.
Yeah, we all did.
We all did it. We all came back. Yeah.
Whoa.
I know. I think the trifecta class, so the class of DFL legislators who were elected in 2022, I think we're close to a third of the DFL caucus, if I'm not mistaken, because I think there's roughly 21 of us or something like that.
Hey.
Yeah.
Well, and I happen to be sitting in Representative Lee Finke's district right now because I don't go home every night because it's a lot of miles on my car, and I have dear friends who live in Falcon Heights, and so I'm often like, well, just going to your district tonight, Lee.
Yes.
So much closer to the Capitol than District 58, but yeah, she's got some parts of St. Paul and Falcon Heights,
Lauderdale, Falcon Heights, St. Paul, I think the Midway area, and of course the State Fair.
Oh yeah, I'm in the University of Minnesota St. Paul. I'm right across the street from the St. Paul campus, the Ag campus.
Yeah, lots of good stuff going on in Lee's district. There's a reason why she takes about 80% of the vote in the general election. It's because she's awesome and she belongs in the legislature as long as she can, she decides that it's right for her,
So I'm lucky to get to serve with her.
Yes, I'm thankful for her to serve alongside of her. Our class really owes a lot to her and her leadership. And yeah, can't say enough good things about our good friend, Lee Finke.
And hopefully she'll come back for an ex-transvaganza episode update, 2025 edition. Because the episode that she did on this podcast in our first season, would that have been 2023?
That must have been 2023.
A lot has changed in the state, mostly at the federal level, and so we'll get Lee back on for an episode.
Yes, lots more to discuss there too.
It'd be great to get Speaks on too. I'm not sure if Melissa Hartman would dare to come on with us, but we might try.
We'll keep asking. I'll
keep
her.
Playing the tape of you and I just complimenting her relentlessly.
See this great show, Speaks? Just come on this show. We'll say great things about you. We will not put you on the spot whatsoever.
I feel like maybe she could tell some horror stories and funny tales from 20 years in the legislature. Maybe that's a topic, a little lighter.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I love that you chose our friend Lee Binky for one of your three. I think I'm going the opposite direction. So I'm starting with the longest tenure.
All right.
You're starting with the shortest tenure. So my next remarkable woman who works in the Minnesota House, I got to serve where she was the chair of the committee last term. So I am no longer on the Education Finance Committee, but that is the committee that Cheryl Joachim co-chaired this year, and she has chaired in the past. And her kind of quiet, steady leadership is something that I really admire. She is such a hard worker. She goes back and watches committee hearings that we already had. She watches the Senate hearings to hear how certain bills went. She'll be listening to them when she drives. She does her homework. She is incredibly, incredibly dedicated to this work. She represents Hopkins, a teeny tiny bit of St. Louis Park. And she claims, she's chair of the Education Finance Committee. She started her political involvement by advocating for increased funding for early childhood. Yep. She even co-founded a small nonprofit in 2004, Start Early Learning, to raise awareness in the West Metro around quality early care education. She also was part of the Legislative Action Coalition, which advocated for increasing funding. And that is how I got to be on the Education Finance Committee, which is a very important and powerful committee in my first term, because I was getting involved with the Legislative Action Committee in my school district in Northfield and learning more about school funding, which is so complicated.
Oh my gosh, so complicated.
So complicated. Cheryl also works as a paraprofessional in our public schools when we are not in session. She is relentlessly dedicated to the issues around education as well as transportation. She served on the Hopkins City Council. She's looking at, light rail and other types of transportation. She certainly is more than just the education finance chair, but that is certainly a place where we have all gotten to benefit from her experience and her passion. So she also is one of those people who knows about that other legislative body.
That's right.
She was a staffer over there in the Senate, and she worked for Senator Ron Latz, who is her senator now, I think, right? I think she's in one of the House districts of his.
I think so.
So she started working over there, seeing about the process. Then, and actually, we have a few of our colleagues who have worked in that body and that have come over. And it's helpful for me, for sure, of just like, there is a different way to do it. And why do we do it this way? Why do they do it that way? And so she has just really brought that experience also over into her leadership in the House to try to make it more humane for us members and especially for the staff. Yeah. And so I just respect the hell out of her. Last year, of course, she advocated for $2 billion of our surplus to go back to be funding our public schools. Finally, we tied the education formula to inflation.
Yes.
This is an idea talked about a decade ago. If we would have done that, the per pupil dollars that the state would be paying our public schools would almost be double. So she's just incredibly caring and wants to be doing the right thing. And she's so clear on her why. Yeah. The things you might want to add about Cheryl Joachim, Brion.
Cheryl is such a pleasure to work with. And, not just because of all the wonderful things you mentioned, but because she is fierce. She is fierce in her sort of mama bear protective mode over students in the best way, where all she really truly wants is the best for our kids that the state can provide. And that is it is so, so genuine from her. And most of the time that comes out in the cool, calm, collected Chair Joachim that we all see. But sometimes it comes out in the, like I said, a fierce way, but in the best way, because she really advocated hard for our funding to finally get where it is now, tied to inflation. And I agree, anytime somebody has questions about education, finance, and funding, you've got to talk to Cheryl, because she can explain it in a way that makes sense to you without making you feel, slighted in any way. And I, as a new member, I really struggled. I haven't been on education committees. And I just really struggled to catch up on a lot of the ed finance, sort of the ins and outs and how it all worked. And I had a lot of questions. And she was just always so nice about answering the questions and providing the history of where things were and how we got to be where we are. And just, she's just so kind in her approach in that way. And I will say, too, from, a Queer Caucus perspective, that she is one of our most amazing allies. And she's talked about it on the House floor, and I'm sure, and in committees, too. But she gave a hell of a speech toward the beginning of this session about, just treading lightly when we're talking about othering people and what that can lead to. That was really touching. And I was getting messages from community members who were just watching floor session, expecting it to be pretty rough for the trans community. And I had a couple folks in real time texting me saying, Chair Joachim, just lighting it up, And I was like, yeah, that's who she is. I expect nothing less. She's wonderful.
Yay, Cheryl.
Yay, Cheryl. We love you, Cheryl.
Okay. So now you have a maybe more mid-career member, because you started with a new Libs.
That's
not
right.
someone in their first term, but someone in their second term like us. So who do you have up next, Brion?
So next I have someone who was first elected in 2020. So she's in her third term now. Our probably most remotely located from the Twin Cities, our most greater Minnesota DFLer, Representative Heather Keeler from Moorhead, Minnesota. There are so many things to admire about the way that Representative Heather Keeler operates in our legislative space. And I think one of them really is just her history of bipartisanship. Being somebody from greater Minnesota who's a DFLer surrounded by members of the other party. And, you do a lot of work. Kristi and I know this. You do a lot of work regionally, too, with the folks that your district borders. And for Heather, that means she's got to do a lot of work with people who are on the other side of the aisle. For me, most of the folks that I border are DFLers, but there are several who are Republicans that I too have a lot of good working relationships with. But for Heather, this is everybody who borders her. And she's essentially the lone blue dot on the west side of the state. And so I really appreciate what she does to keep us all sort of centered in the border-to-border aspect of the work that we do, because it is easy for some of us, especially as you get closer to the Metro Twin Cities area, to forget some of the major differences that we have in our cities. That greater Minnesota, there's just different battles that people have. And I think too that when we think about states that are our neighbors, we tend to go to Wisconsin. We think about Wisconsin quite a bit, at least those of us in the Twin Cities, because it's right there. And a lot of folks, are used to going to Wisconsin frequently because it's so close. But for Heather, she's in a unique position to be part of a metro area that crosses state borders. So the Fargo-Moorhead area is in itself its own metro area that includes two states. And the economy of North Dakota is vastly different from the state of Minnesota. They have oil money and we don't. And you might think that maybe that's just one difference, but that is a huge difference in how the state of North Dakota is able to pay for the things that their residents need, the wages that they're able to offer for certain jobs. The economics in North Dakota are very, very different. However, we need to be keenly aware of that when we're making policy decisions on the Minnesota side. That could mean the difference of a whole slew of people quitting jobs in the state of Minnesota to go literally across the street to North Dakota for a similar job for much more money. And so I appreciate that, we do have to consider, the decisions that we make affecting people in all different areas of the state. I think Heather is always the person who will remind you to drink water and take care of yourself.
That's true.
Absolutely true. One of the, when I was first getting to know Rep Keeler at the beginning of our first term, I was just started to pass her in the hallway, and she just stopped me and looked me in the face and just said, "Something's not right. You're not okay about something." And I was like, "No, I'm fine." And she's like, "You're lying to me. Tell me about it." And so it was like, okay, this person sees people, sees
Tuned
stress, very tuned in. And so we can always count on Heather. This is, of course, I think a reason why that she also was elected as an assistant caucus leader, because she knows what's up. She knows how to make sure that people take care of themselves, and always reminding us to prioritize ourselves, our own health and our families, and our well-being, because we can't do these jobs if we're not well. And I think she does a great job of reminding us of that.
And talk about, also looking at the, health of our communities.
Right.
And she's so passionately and proudly represents her community.
Mm-hmm.
And she defines her community as multi-layered. It's not just Moorhead. It's not just, American Indians. It's a lot of different sort of more marginalized groups of Minnesotans that she will fiercely advocate for. I got to hear her present a bill in the capital investment room today, and that was the only one where I think half the room got choked up. Yeah. She is just so clear on her values, and we need to protect our kids and take care of the children in our communities.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Heather centers her work around family, and I think a large part of that is from her background. She is one of now 2 members in the House of the Native Caucus. We lost one of our Native members to retirement.
Who is that?
Jamie Becker-Finn, one of my besties. And this is where I give her a shout out. If you were still in the House, Jamie, I would give you a longer spot. But if you're listening, we love you, and we miss you greatly. Heather's work in the Native Caucus and in that space, we can do a whole episode on sovereignty, and I hope that we do sometime, that we're able to coordinate that. But she makes sure that members stay informed. That's part of our jobs, is to be informed, and she doesn't have to do that, but she understands the assignment of getting into this space and making sure that we understand. And hopefully, I know that has resonated with me, and it really, really did when I was running for office. I didn't even know Rep Keeler at the time. Just understanding how legislation works, that there are other people who are doing work and have worked for things for so long. And she always just keeps us grounded in, our past, present, and the future, and making that commitment to caring for the next 7 generations. I think that's just such a beautiful thing, that we could all keep in mind when we're legislating the next 7 generations. That's an idea that once I heard it, was like, yes, that is what we need to be talking about for the long term. What does that look like? What are we setting our kids up for? But I will say, on top of all of that, Heather's, I think, her largest points of pride, and it makes sense why, preventing homelessness and food insecurity. Just a champion on those issues. She just about single-handedly passed a really, really, really crucial piece of legislation last biennium, with a whole lot of funding attached to it, and that every single dollar will go to make sure that people have a place to go. And if you don't have a place to go, if you don't have a home to go to, it's really difficult to be successful in life. So I think, lots of things that we can talk about with our colleagues. But I think the preventing homelessness and tackling food insecurity, again, these are family issues. And that's what Rep. Heather Keeler is all about, is protecting the family and protecting future families. And that's why I chose her as one of my legislators to highlight for Women's History Month.
Whoop, whoop. Yay, Keeler.
Yeah, Keeler.
Okay, well, I'm on to my last
Okay.
one, which might surprise new Libs listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So my first person to serve 10 years, Melissa Hortman served 20 years, Cheryl Joachim 10 years, and the person that I'm going to be highlighting was first elected in 2018. So this person is on her 4th term. However, she is a first-term Speaker of the House. I am talking about current House Speaker Lisa Dameth.
Lisa Dameth. Happy Women's History Month.
Happy Women's History Month. So Lisa Dameth, just following in the footsteps of Lee Finke, Lisa Dameth was recognized, was it Time magazine, as like 100 women. There was some
USA, something
one
like
of those
that.
national publications so Lee Finke was one of the 100 women of the year 2 years ago. And then I believe Lisa Dameth was one of the 100 women of the year for this year. So yeah, she is the first Republican female Speaker of the House in our state's history. She's also the first biracial or Black identifying Speaker of the House in state history. These are huge barriers to have broken. She was also the first Speaker of the House whose first speakership was ruled invalid by the Supreme Court.
There is that.
There's that. So there's, some different ways of making history. But I wanted to highlight Speaker Dameth for a few reasons. So she is a passionate conservative. She followed in the footsteps. So Kurt Dowd had been the Speaker of the House, and then the Republicans lost the majority. So that's when Melissa Hortman came in. And then when they lost further, when Brion and I and Andy all came into the House, she was elected the minority leader, right? Was that her title?
Yes. Yep.
So that was really a moment that her caucus, said it's time for some new leadership. So yeah. Kurt Dowd was still an elected person for a while. He ended up resigning right before last year session in 2024. So there had to be a special election. But an interesting dynamic that he was still in the caucus, but the other members of the Republican caucus said, you know what, Kurt, your time has come, your time is gone. We're going to elect Lisa as our minority leader. And she is the Speaker of the House. However, the Republicans do not have a majority, but this was part of that deal worked out with Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman, that Lisa Dameth could have the gavel for the 2 years, even though we are in a tie. Another reason why I wanted to pick Speaker Dameth is that there's a personal connection. So we haven't talked about our other legislators' personal lives, because that's often a thing that happens with female identifying legislators. I'm not going to talk about her family. I'm going to talk about my family. So one of our late nights in session, I think it was last year, I think it was in 2024, we're sitting in the retiring room and I was just chatting her up, and I had seen my mom's first cousin at something, and we always, that side of the family, we always have a family reunion every year in Paynesville, Minnesota, which is outside of St. Cloud and Stearns County, and that's where the family farm is. And so my mom's cousin took over the family farm a couple of years ago. So he is the third generation of our century-old farm outside of Paynesville. And Dean was talking to me, and he was like, I'm pretty sure I went to high school with Lisa Dameth. And I asked her, and she said, oh, Dean Heike? Yeah, we went to high school together.
Oh, funny.
And this is just, the very, very small town. I believe she lives in Cold Spring now, which is like the next town over from Paynesville. But just that kind of part of the world is pretty small. And that was a nice way where she and I connected. Never served on a committee with her. never like sort of had reason or opportunity to get to know her. And that was just a really lovely, like humanizing moment where we could both talk up, and she was like, wait, where is your farm? And I was like, oh, out by Salem Church. Oh, that's out. Okay. Hikeys. Oh yeah. Like sort of making that family connection. That was, it was just really special. And I think it's always helpful. It was helpful for me, but I hope it was also helpful for her because it was like, I'm not just some, random white lady from Northfield. It's like, I know her part of the world, and we have some of the same people. And that's where my people are from. That's, where I identify my family farm is, the home place farm there. And so I think, she absolutely has made history this year. And so in this Women's History Month, I wanted to acknowledge Speaker Lisa Dameth.
Yeah, I think, when we were talking about Speaks Hortman and how she gave up half the speakership so that Lisa Dameth could be our full-time speaker for 2 years. As Democrats, of course, we were disappointed, and of, folks who really, truly do appreciate the leadership of Melissa Hortman, I will say having Speaker Dameth on the floor so far has been a pleasant experience. She committed to giving people equal time, trying to make the environment fair. And I have to say, I never worked under Speaker Kurt Doubt, but I imagine that it is drastically different.
So the stories go.
I was joking with our Speaks Hortman the other day too, that the chamber has certainly been, less excruciating to the ears without Kurt Dowd and Ann New Brindley. Much love to them as they've gone on to their careers, but man, some folks really got loud in the microphone. And I'm glad that Lisa Dameth is hopefully going to hold us to, keeping the voices down a little bit and keeping things civil, which I certainly appreciate. I haven't had the chance to work with her really on much at all, but the limited interaction I have had with her truly has been pleasant. She smiles, says hello, and is somebody that I know to be a generally good colleague. I wish I had, yeah. I wish I had more to say about her. We just haven't had a lot of interaction. So I appreciate you filling all of us in on a little more on Speaker Lisa Dameth.
Yes. Okay. Well, for our sixth and final
That's right.
woman we're highlighting, who is your last pick, Brion?
Okay. So again, this is really difficult because we work with so many awesome women who are just going through it and came in for all the right reasons, and we want to highlight every single one of them. But somebody who stood out to me since Kristi and I first got our start, this person is, she's in her 4th term. She is a fellow suburbanite representing areas including Shoreview, Arden Hills, and Mounds View. First elected in 2018, current co-chair and former chair of public safety, Kelly Moeller.
Whoop, whoop.
Yay, Kelly. Kelly is, first I'll say, an energetic Swiftie for folks who don't know.
100%.
I'm trying to give little nuggets of some personal highlights of the folks we work with too. Because I think most people know Kelly for her reputation as a badass attorney. And we have no shortage of lawyers in the legislature.
We have a few on our side of the aisle, yeah.
We have a few, but we can poke fun. It truly is in the caucus room behind closed doors. We give each other a little bit of grief every now and then, the lawyer caucus versus the rest of us. But saying that all in jest, Kelly truly is somebody who's committed to true public safety. And she's somebody who has been a lifelong advocate specifically for victim survivors and their rights. And I, have had like I said, the pleasure of serving on committees with Kelly now going on for my 3rd year. And the Kelly that I got to know as a baby legislator in 23 has only gotten more and more badass in the last couple years. I don't know how else to put it.
Fierce is the word I think of.
She is fierce, another fierce woman in so many great ways. You know, as a co-chair now in public safety, it's a pretty spicy committee, as folks could imagine. We get some pretty controversial topics in the committee. And Kelly does not miss a beat. She has one of the quickest brains in the legislature that I've ever encountered. And her ability to sort of just combat things that aren't true, are inaccurate, are harmful, hurtful. She could take down, and you know, if every single member of a committee on the Republican side spoke for 10 minutes and said something awful, she could take that every single point down in closing remarks that last a minute and a half. Like, she just boom, boom, boom. You're wrong. This was not right. We got to do better. You should know better. Thank you. We're done. Like, she is so on top of it. And at the same time, just again, such a kind person. If for folks who get to know Kelly on a more personal level, just so incredibly caring. And I know that sometimes we have, in public safety, we have some really difficult issues to navigate. We're talking, you know, in some cases where people have been harmed or killed. We're talking about prison sentences. A lot of this stuff is really, you know, can be glim and ugly. And she just is so composed in an area that we see legislators who are unable to hold their full composure in committee. And, you know, when she holds the gavel, she takes care of business, right? And so she's somebody who I admire, not just as a fellow suburbanite, but I really value the way that she chairs a committee, the way that she navigates the legislature with her expertise in a way that she uses it when we need it. And she knows when she's the expert and she knows when she's not the expert.
Love that.
She's just so craftful in that way. And, you know, using the word fierce again, as an ally, Kelly has just been an incredible ally. And I don't just mean that from a queer caucus perspective. You can take that to any group who is othered in any way. And Kelly will stick it to you for that. And she is excellent at it. And that's why, you know, she's a successful prosecutor. She will take you to task on the facts at hand and she'll win every time. And I just can't give Kelly enough praise for how well she handles all of this work that is so difficult, but is always looking out for her teammates and doesn't miss a beat. And I just really respect the heck out of her for it. So,
well, I've not got to serve on any committees with Kelly Moeller, but
oh my gosh,
I know, but my office was sort of around the corner from her office the last 2 years in the state office building. And so I would kind of peek around the corner and just like want to hang out in her presence. And then I don't know when I started saying this, but I still say it. I will maybe always say this to my entire legislative career, however long that lasts, is when I grow up, I want to be Kelly Moeller.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
I think there's a lot of us who
who
can only hope to be a fraction of just the poise and the grace. And she's quick to laugh, but she is wicked smart and she is going to hold you accountable for what you say, but will also, like, you know, appreciates a good hug and a check-in. And she is just an incredible. It was hard to narrow this down to 6, y'all, but she's another
Very
one.
difficult.
The 6 that we're highlighting. And I'll just throw in a quick little plug. You got to shout out J.B. Becker Finn, who's no longer in the House, and my person, one of my besties who's no longer in the House, also Liz Olson.
Liz
is another, you know, she continues to be a badass and she is really fierce, smart and compassionate and passionate too. And so we just had to pick 6. So sorry to all of our amazing female colleagues who didn't get to highlight, but maybe we can do this again next year and we could pick 6 more badasses.
Yeah. I think we would have a lot to choose from. It's not a bad problem to have, but I genuinely do feel bad that we can't talk about everybody that we love, but
no, I know.
Hopefully we highlighted some good folks with a bit of variety for listeners to enjoy.
And we're going to take a quick break and then do a quick little favorite things to wrap it up.
All right.
So we'll be right back.
And we're back from our break to talk about our favorite things. I should start by saying, for listeners new to the podcast, please go back and listen to our other episodes. We usually will do a little game at the end, or sometimes a favorite things. I think last time we did a game, so we'll do our favorite things this week, which include things that we just enjoy as people.
Andy plays a clip of me trying to sound like Julie Andrews singing "These Are a Few of My Favorite Things."
Yeah.
But Andy's not here, so we're not doing that. But I thought, Brion, if you wanted to sing that.
These are a few of my favorite things.
Yay!
There you go.
Thank you.
I don't even know if I got that right. But anyhow, Kristi, tell us about a favorite thing of yours that is helping you get through a difficult session.
Well, it is spring break for my children. So it got to be another come to work with mama day yesterday. And I can't believe that the stars aligned in this way. But the same day that my kids were with me, we got to honor the Minnesota professional women's hockey team on the floor. And 10 members of the Minnesota Frost were in the building, and they were up in the gallery. And then they came down on the rostrum. We took pictures. They're in the retiring room, and my kids got to meet them.
Yay.
And I got to meet Coach Klee and staff and the 10 players. And all three of us in my family, we were all a little starstruck.
Aw.
And that was pretty amazing. And I had them sign like the championship towel from
cool.
they won the champion. They made women's history in 2024. They won the first ever Walter Cup, which is the PWHL championship, and they beat Boston. We were actually at the last game they played in Minnesota. There was a goal. We thought, oh my gosh, we just won the championship. We were all going nuts in the XL Energy Center, and then the refs recalled the goal. Someone was in the crease. So we did not get to see the championship game live. We had to watch it. They went back to Boston to win, which I think was anticlimactic for our team. But
yeah,
then this year, their first home game, we hoisted the banner. So it was just really fun. And I'm bringing the kids to their last regular season home game on Sunday.
Ooh,
and I was like,
fun.
Now we get just hang out with our pals, Taylor Heise and Grace Sunwinkle and Kendall Coyne Schofield. And
you go way back now.
We go way back. And so that was absolutely probably a career highlight for me, that we got to honor this team of incredible women athletes and chat with them, and that my kids got to meet them. And so I will be remembering yesterday, Monday, as we're recording Tuesday. So that was Monday this week in the house. I'm going to be remembering that for a long, 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 long time. So
I love that.
That is only kind of work related. We like made it a work thing so we could meet the hockey players. Yeah. So how about you, Brion? What is the thing giving you life? What's one of your favorite things?
Yeah, so one of my favorite things, speaking of kids, is, so some folks know I have an awesome girlfriend. You know, Kristi knows this. You've met her. But due to the nature of legislature and all of this stuff, we don't spend as much time together as we would love to. And she's got 3 kids. And so I don't get to spend as much time with them as I would like to. But a couple weekends ago, one of the kiddos, the middle kiddo, he's 9, who's like one of my best friends, he needed some new clothes, right? Because he gets hand-me-downs from older brother. They do not have the same style. And he's, you know, he wants his own stuff, right? He's a cool kid. He wants to go shopping and get some cool stuff. And he decided that he needed me specifically to take him. So not mom, not dad, but me. I had to be the one. Yeah. So he and I took a trip a couple weekends ago to Mall of America, which for anybody who knows me, I really dislike crowded places. I don't like having to figure out where to park or to try to find my car later. My ADHD brain gets very overwhelmed very quickly.
This is love, Brion. This is love.
Yeah, but it was ADHD me and ADHD kiddo taking a trip to Mall of America, and we did it.
Yes.
We
Yes.
crushed it. We found some awesome, cool, trendy clothes that
Cool.
look great. We also maybe made a stop at the Lego store just to look at cool stuff because we both
Mm-hmm.
love Legos.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe got some slushies, maybe got some popcorn with fun flavors, maybe got lost trying to find the car for like 10 minutes.
That's
But
part of it.
we found the car, right? And we made it back and we made a whole day of it and we had
Oh.
such a good time. We joked about how we both were taking the most ridiculous long ways to get to stores in the mall because we had no idea where we were. And we were like, we think this is the wrong way, but we're having fun, so it's okay.
I love that.
So yeah, I got to I have not had the pleasure of raising my own children up until now, but now I'm blessed to have 3 kiddos in my life who I care deeply about, and sort of having that one-on-one was a lot of fun. We got some really good bonding time in, and we got some really cool like kind of Pokemon t-shirt, we got a Fortnite t-shirt, some cool stuff.
Okay, sweet
Yeah.
threads.
Yeah.
What would my kids say? Sick.
Sick?
Threads?
Skibbity? I don't know.
They would say that. Who knows what that means?
I don't
Who
even
knows?
know. I don't
Yeah.
even know. Well, that's been our favorite things for the week, keeping us connected to things outside the legislature. You have heard from the new Libs. Now it's your turn to go out on the block.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Eat your heart out, Andy.